KMSP
The Overnight Underground Podcast. Now the headlines. Death and riots in Minneapolis. Protests and tear gas in Hong Kong. Twitter and Trump are playing a game of Twitter chicken. Prostitutes face coronavirus restrictions. Squirt gun baptisms and getting bit by a black widow won't give you superpowers.
Damn.
These stories and more on today's Overnight Underground News. I'm John Ford. The video of a Minneapolis cop kneeling on the neck of a handcuffed man next to a police car is honestly too brutal to watch, especially when you consider the man, gasping and pleading with the police for breath, died following the callous treatment by the cops. The Star Tribune reports that 4 officers have been fired following the death of 47-year-old George Floyd.
We watched for 5 minutes as a white officer pressed his knee into the neck of a black man. For 5 minutes. When you hear someone calling for help, you are supposed to help. This officer failed in the most basic human sense.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. 24 hours following the death of Floyd, on the streets of Minneapolis, police and protesters clashed with a melee of bottles, rubber bullets, and tear gas. A police precinct and multiple police vehicles were trashed in the rioting. The sound of protesters breaking shit, recorded by KMSP TV. The FBI and Minnesota state authorities are reportedly investigating Floyd's death. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, similar scenes played out in the streets of Hong Kong, with clashes between pro-democracy protesters and the police. That's the sound of Hong Kong police breaking shit and shooting pepper guns at protesters. The BBC reports hundreds of people were arrested as Hong Kong citizens took to the streets to demonstrate against a proposed Chinese national security law. Some Hong Kongers compared the scene on the streets of the city to martial law, with stop-and-search checkpoints set up in the city and riot police taking a zero-tolerance stance.
Hong Kong's freedoms will be preserved, and Hong Kong's vibrancy and core values in terms of the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the various rights and freedoms enjoyed by people will continue to be there.
Chief Executive and Beijing mouthpiece Carrie Lam doing her best to assure Hong Kong citizens that the Chinese commies are just well-meaning, really nice guys.
That's right.
Chinese authorities have said they will act against foreign interference in Hong Kong, and state-run media has called U.S. threats of sanctions a, quote, nothing burger. Wouldn't a nothing noodle be more apropos?
Yes, Doctor.
Speaking of burgers, according to the South China Morning Post, Chinese authorities have shut down a WeChat conspiracy social media account that had been claiming the U.S. was using dead bodies to make hamburgers. The world just gets a little stranger and scarier every single day.
That was so sentimental. Things explode every day.
Yes, I suppose so. Anyway, I didn't like her, really.
Twitter and the press are still going at each other again today. For the first time, Twitter added a, quote, unsubstantiated warning to 2 of President Trump's tweets. On Tuesday, Trump twatted that supplying voters with mail-in ballots would be, quote, substantially fraudulent. Twitter flagged the posts with a warning that Trump was making a, quote, unsubstantiated claim.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Trump's campaign manager released a statement criticizing Twitter's policy. And so it goes. This should sell a lot of popcorn. We didn't see this one coming.
Come again.
In Switzerland, sex workers will limit customers to 2 positions, which will allegedly minimize the risk of transmitting coronavirus. According to the Daily Mail, the guidelines will only include sex positions which allow safe distances between faces and the washing of bed sheets between each customer. That sounds like a lot of loads.
Oh, my God.
Of laundry.
No ticky, no laundry.
We'll leave the rest up to your imagination. Last week, we had a story about the priest using a squirt gun to bless parishioners during Holy Week. This week, a priest in the U.S. is using a water pistol to baptize an infant.
Squirt, squirt.
And from the tweeted picture, you can just tell that Father Flotsky, or whatever the hell his name is, has some range time under his cloak with a pretty good weaver stance. Another priest in Canada has kicked it up a notch. It appears he's using a super soaker for infant baptism. I'm sure Republican Jesus does indeed approve. Astronomers have captured images of a donut-shaped cosmic ring of fire that existed some 11 billion years ago.
Donuts.
According to the study published in the journal Nature, the Ring of Fire cosmic donut galaxy formed when two separate galaxies smashed into one another. Think of it kind of like a cosmic copulation or an intergalactic T-bone.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand.
Okay, dumbass. Having a black widow spider bite you will not give you superpowers. According to Telemundo, 3 Bolivian brothers were hospitalized after prodding a black widow spider with a stick just to get the nasty little bastard to bite them. Of course, they all thought the bite would turn them into Spider-Man. Silly boys, we all know that only works with radioactive spiders.
Created by science, powered by nuclear energy.
In fact, the black widow bites turned them into crying twits, writhing in pain. To make a long story even longer, the trio spent close to a week in the hospital recovering from the spider bites. In Clearfield, Pennsylvania, Billy's Burgerland is taking some shit for opening up the restaurant and resuming dine-in service. WJAC reports a man threw a bottle of sewage at the restaurant in retaliation for reopening. According to the owner of Billy's Burgerland, a man asked one of the waitresses if they were in compliance with the CDC's guidelines, and then threw a Mountain Dew bottle full of sewage and replied, "Let's see if you get any customers now." Maybe they could change to Chinese food and start serving poo-poo platters. Besides, someone told me the place might be a dump anyway. Hey, I'm here all week. Try the veal.
Shit. N-E-W-S.
A mostly correct and occasionally incomplete transcript and links to reference sources and articles of this Overnight Underground can be found at overnightunderground.com.